Our top story this morning, House lawmakers made 6 years of former President Trump's tax returns public. Trump fought for more than 3 years to hide them from the public view. But last month, the Supreme Court ruled that Congress has a right to see them as part of its oversight role. So let's get right to CBS News' congressional correspondent, Scott MacFarlane, standing by with really a look at these documents. So, Scott, we just got them. What records are being released by the committee today?
Now, this is a pile of paper unlike one we've seen in quite a while. This is 6 years of business and individual tax returns, and anybody who goes through the IRS tax preparing process realizes there's an awful lot of paper even when you have a simple set of income taxes. Former president with his businesses and with the course of 6 years being included has some rather intricate taxes to file. What that Democrats on the House Ways and Means Committee have argued before the release today and after the release today is that Donald Trump took deductions for which there were not proper documentation or that were just improper, and that he could have and should have been paying more in his taxes. Navigating through this is going to take some time, but what the committee has also argued, Deborah, and this is critical, is that the IRS should have been but wasn't auditing the former president's taxes for part of that 6-year time period, despite the fact that Trump claimed he was under audit, which is why he didn't release them, he says, and also despite the fact the IRS was supposed to be auditing those. That's going to be a big question moving forward. Should or can Congress change its oversight of the IRS to ensure presidential tax audits are done?
Right, they were audited just once in that period. So I'm assuming that the former president has something to say about the release of the tax returns. What's he saying?
His comment on the tax release was among the first, even before some of the members of Congress who released it. I'm reading now from his statement, and I'm going to do this without reading glasses, so you bear with me for a minute, Deborah. It says the Democrats should have never done it. The Supreme Court should have never approved it, and it's going to lead to horrible things for so many people. The former president's statement also includes some criticism of Democrats, as he often does in any context, but he says the Trump tax returns once again show how proudly successful I've been and how I've been able to use depreciation as a tool and various other tax deductions as a tool, as an incentive for creating thousands of jobs and magnificent structures and enterprises. Former president's statement released just after his taxes were released. Deborah, this is going to be a political issue moving forward. Donald Trump is a declared candidate for the White House in 2024. Since his announcement, he has been dealing with a tonnage of, to put it mildly, less than optimal news. This is another thing he'll have to overcome and deal with in the weeks and months ahead.
Absolutely. Why did Congress push so hard to have these documents made public, Scott?
One of the things they had to argue, Deborah, to win the legal battle to get these tax returns is that it needed to do better oversight of how the IRS handles tax returns of declared presidential candidates or presidents themselves. They had to argue there was a legislative purpose, and they made the argument oversight of the IRS is very much a legislative purpose of the U.S. Congress. So we expect there to be proposals of legislation to change how the IRS oversees presidential tax records, perhaps legislation in the next Congress requiring any major party declared presidential candidate to voluntarily release his or her tax returns. It's worth remembering, it's kind of been lost over the past few years. We've become accustomed to this, but Donald Trump defied decades of tradition by not releasing his tax returns. It's possible Congress considers making that a mandate, since we've had a U.S. president who defied that custom and didn't do so.
Now, you had alluded, Scott, to several less than optimal situations that former President Trump is dealing with. This last situation with the tax returns, you think this will have any impact on his presidential campaign for 2024?
There's always a mixed bag when you talk about bad news, Donald Trump and his political fortunes. This is another sandbag he's carrying, in addition to federal investigations in Washington, D.C. into January 6th, a Georgia investigation into efforts to overturn an election, the New York financial investigations he's facing, the Mar-a-Lago investigation. Just add this to the mix. But he's been able to mobilize and galvanize his base by championing his defiance of bad news in government investigations. He's been able to weaponize that in the past. So it's unclear if this is a bad thing or a good thing in the short term for a presidential candidate who's trying to inspire his base.
You will be running out of fingers the longer this show goes. Scott, thank you so much for your insight.
Thanks, Deborah.